Hey, Snackers, this is Kareem Iskander.
Hey everyone, Matt DiNapoli here.
Welcome to episode 194 of Snack Minute.
This episode, we have our good friend Hank back. Last time he was on here, he was telling us all about his work with AI, and we also had Jason on previously to show us LM Studio. But Hank's going to dive a little bit deeper on that today. But before we get into it, Hank, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to our newbies, and then we'll jump right into it.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be back with you both. It does seem like the only thing we talk about these days is AI, though I promise all the snackers there is more to the world than AI these days. It just seems to be the big, exciting stuff that we're all after. Hank Preston, I'm a principal engineer in Learn with Cisco, and I work on all sorts of things related to, I don't know, network engineering training, certification, strategy, our instructors deliver, how we deliver content for instructors, network academy work. I kind of get to put my fingers in a lot of different pies, but generally they all relate to learning technology and learning technical topics, mostly focused on network engineering.
Today, you're going to talk to us a little bit more about LM Studio. And I know you've been driving the initiative in our organization to kind of bring in LM Studio to anybody that's using or leveraging AI for local development. I've learned a lot from the sessions that you pulled together, Hank. So thanks for that. But I wanted to make sure that we share some of that with our snackers to see the potential. So what are you going to talk to us about today?
Yeah, and I know Jason was on a few episodes ago. I don't know which number it was, kind of introducing LM Studio, and I'm a huge fan. AI and generative AI tooling and capabilities is really amazing, but a lot of what folks see and get started with AI are the cloud-based services like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or any of the ones that are there. And so it can seem like you need these massive kind of nuclear powered data centers to just experiment and learn about AI. And one of the things that really opened my eyes is when I first started to experiment with local LLM running. And what that means is rather than using hardware in the cloud, right, by one of these big providers, you're just running the LLM, the language model, on your laptop or on your desktop or whatever you happen to be using for your computing device. And you interact with it the same way. And I was amazed by how well you can use AI and the features, the capabilities that you can do without having kind of those big services. Now, running it on your laptop is not the same, right? You're not going to get the exact same performance. You don't necessarily have access to the exact same models that are running in the big proprietary cloud services. But there's a lot that you can do, and you don't need those full capabilities. And so my goal today is to kind of show a few more examples and dive into some of the things you can do with LM Studio. And LM Studio is just one of the local LLM tools available. It just happens to be the one that currently is my favorite kind of tool in the toolbox.
Well, that's fantastic, Hank. I think the snacker is going to be really excited to see, because usually you'll bring to the table a demo that's tied to networking infrastructure, automation, and programmability. So can you give us a tie into real quick before you do the demo and show us what you're working with, what use case we're going to be looking at?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of specific use cases related to network engineering types of tasks we would do as network operations that we could leverage something like LM Studio for. I'm going to skip over some of the basic stuff that Jason covered with you guys and kind of dive into some of the I don't want to say advanced, because this is all still fairly basic AI pieces, but just that next step up. So we're going to start with kind of doing some network configuration analysis. We're going to pull in a little bit of retrieval-augmented generation and talk about why that's important. And then if we've got some time at the end, I want to dive into maybe some kind of using AI to analyze network diagrams, which is an interesting aspect and kind of way to go after it. And then finally, if we get into some of the automation side, one of the big topics these days are building agents and tools for agentic AI. And we can use LM Studio to help us with kind of learning and exploring that new side of network automation. So it's kind of the spectrum of what I've got prepared for you gents today. We can jump around a little bit. If there's a part of that, Matt and Kareem, you guys want to jump into first or different, I don't much care. All of these, I think, are really interesting ways to look at it.
No, this is it all.
That sounds like you're going to start at the baseline and build up. So let's go.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm sharing here is my LM Studio window. Now, I know we've seen this before. The snackers that have been on are there, but just to review a couple of things. The LM Studio is designed to look like most of the AI chat-based interfaces you're used to. And so we can see that I can type a message in down here. But because it's a local client, we have to tell it what model we're going to use. And I've downloaded onto my laptop a series of models that I can run directly on my workstation here. And for reference, I've got a MacBook, an M4 MacBook with about 28 gigs of RAM. So a reasonable system, but not one that's it's not one of the kind of systems that's wildly out of place for a network engineer to have, right? It's the standard MacBook that we get as just engineers here at Cisco. So I don't have a big farm that's going, a big GPU farm that I'm running these against. And so the model I've loaded now is one of the newest open weight models that were sent out there. So this is one that was published by OpenAI. And so this is built using similar architecture to the ChatGPT models. And this was released, oh man, does it even say? It was released, I don't know, several weeks ago at this point. But this is the smaller of their two GPT OSS models. So it's got 20 billion parameters. It's a fairly large model, but one of the things I've been liking about using it is it's very capable. It has the ability to work with tools. It's a reasoning model. And I can run it directly on my laptop, which gives me some nice behavior on that. So I've picked that one. If we get into some of the images or the vision processing, we'll dive into some of these other models that I've got. But you can see I've got a whole bunch of these all kind of downloaded, and I can flip between them as I want. So I've got the OpenAI one loaded. Now, once I'm in here, because it's a reasoning model and it provides the ability to kind of tune the level of reasoning that it's going to kind of go after. And so I'm going to switch this from the low reasoning level. I'm going to just, we'll set it up to medium. So it's going to think a little bit harder about its answers. The way I kind of look at these is the low reasoning is kind of just shoot from the hip. You ask a question and it's basically very little reasoning. It's just going to start immediately responding.
That's how I work.
All of us sometimes, right? Medium means it's going to think about it a little bit, kind of make a plan and then respond. High reasoning is where it will spend a lot of time kind of churning through the question, to some extent overthinking the question. I've actually had cases where the model just gets in a thought loop and never finishes when it's set to high reasoning, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah, I've seen on that is when I switched it to high reasoning and I asked for like a joke, and it just sits there constantly thinking, oh, that's not funny enough. That's not good enough. No, that one's boring. Maybe we should do something. And it just kind of goes forever.
That's how I work.
Yeah, that's how you work.
Nice. All right, so we'll go with medium. And then for this first one, I'm going to go ahead and grab, I've copied, I'm going to paste it in a second so you don't have to watch me type. But the idea for this first example is I am not going to ask the AI to generate a network configuration. In general, I still believe that that's kind of our job, is to generate the things. But what we do like the ability is to have somebody look over our work. So I'm going to say, hey, I've put this template together for a VPN configuration. Can you review and provide some suggestions? So I paste it in. So it's just kind of a standard crypto template. I've put it in here. It's got kind of Jinja placeholders to show where it goes after. And so this is something I might do with another network engineer on the team, or send it over to, if I'm a customer, I might send it over to my partner engineer or a Cisco or TAC. But let's see what AI can do. So I'll fire this off. And what we'll see is, it's processing locally on my laptop, and it's got, now the thinking is kind of kicked in. It says, all right, the user's giving me this piece. It's going to flip through these things. I'm not going to read all the thought process here, but if you're interested in kind of how it thought through it, you do get to be able to peek behind the curtain and watch the reasoning behavior after the fact to understand what it is that the model is doing and thinking about your question. One of the, I'll say, if there are disadvantages to reasoning models, is that they're a little slower, right? If you've been using AI for a while, oftentimes you ask a question and boom, the answer's there. When you start asking them to think deeply or do this reasoning, it will take a little longer. And that's why I'm continuing to kind of babble and kill time here. Oh, good, it's done thinking. And so now we're getting kind of the review for our code review that's done. And we'll let this process, and then we'll kind of look at a couple of things that it calls out. But any color commentary from the peanut gallery while we're waiting?
I mean, I thought it was interesting that we could peek behind the curtain and see how it was working through the reasoning. I know it was moving a little faster than we could probably read it, but being able to go back and understand potentially how it's processing that. And then even you had mentioned the retrieval augmented generation. I think I have a feeling that's going to play into one of your later demos, and show us how it brings in other context to help it understand what it's working on.
Well, I like the
Yeah.
fact that the thing is that I like here is I could be on a plane without connected to anything outside to the outside world and be doing this work. And
Yeah.
it's super quick. So if I compare it to, some of the cloud tools that I use, like Claude or whatever, it is very similar, and I didn't have to wait very long. And all of this is running locally, which is I think it's really and you didn't have to. The other thing is you didn't have to worry about running through your tokens or any of that
Or paying
while
for
you chat
anything, right?
or paying
Right.
for anything. So
Well, and
it's
Yeah.
I was wondering, I know we're using this kind of for a learning platform, but one of the bigger concerns that I could see from an operational perspective is that cost structure that goes in with using some of the cloud-based models. But if we can find a local model potentially that meets our needs for any given activity, I could see solutions being built very specifically with smaller local models in mind. And if they hit that, if they hit that solution that we're looking for, why spend the money if we don't have to, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole conversation, I think, in another snack minute discussion all about that. But everything you said is completely on board. I've actually used LM Studio on a plane coming back from a Cisco Live to do some work for that exact use case, Cream. The token pieces. I was talking with one of our coworkers, and they were doing some development work. And I remember during their video, the Claude thing pops up and says, "Your free tokens are done. Come back at 5 p.m." And all of that's really kind of frustrating. And so these are just some of the great reasons for local LLM. But I'm going to scroll up again, and we don't have time, and it's not worth it to go through all these answers. But what we can see as I scroll is I got a lot of really good information from here. So from a code review, I can take a look at it. I always like to point this out. I've been using this particular code snippet for a while, and there is an originally accidental typo in the template. And I'm always curious, can it find it? Does it see those? And it's the first thing it found is, hey, there's a minor syntax issue, that there was a typo. There's supposed to be a space right here between set and VPN transform. So I'll find some of the basics. But building on this one, moving into RAG, one of the downsides or one of the potential issues with using open models, or any model where it comes from, is you don't know what the training data was in. You don't know how accurate its knowledge around networking is. And this is where RAG can come in handy. And so I think you guys have talked about this in other sessions before, but I'm going to just kind of spin open a new chat here and say, okay, I want to show how we could do the same question, but rather than relying on just the training data that's in the LLM, I want to provide access to known good information. So I'm gonna turn the reasoning effort actually down to low, just so that this demo goes a little faster. So we're gonna use RAG. I'm gonna go ahead and attach, and I'm gonna grab. I just downloaded the security and VPN configuration guide for iOS XE from Cisco.com, and so I'm gonna go ahead and let me try to open this. Uh-oh, I get a problem. And so what we're seeing is it's failed to upload the size. That file, I think, is like 40 megs. And so what we're seeing here is one of the downsides, right? This is the local LLM. It's not as powerful as some of those big data centers, but 31 megs is still pretty good. I just need to be a little more selective. And so rather than adding the entire guide, I'm going to go in and say, I'm just going to add the chapters related to VPN configuration. So put a little more thought into it. I'm not going to send it like 40 megs of content. I'm just going to send it the data that's relevant. And we'll open all that up, and we'll see now they're all listed as attached to this chat. And so now, and then we also see kind of this RAG thing has been kicked in to say, okay, we're now going to use RAG, which is a kind of a tool or a plugin to LM Studio to analyze those documents. And then I can put the same basic template in. So if I copy the template over and say, can you, review this VPN config template and provide feedback. All right, and we'll put it in. All right. So it'll go through. So we'll see LM Studio comes in and says, I'm going to kind of choose the injection strategy. There's so much data that it couldn't just put it into the context window. So it has to use retrieval. And then it goes and searches. By default, LM Studio limits itself just to three relevant citations, but you can raise that up to 10 if you want to have it pull more information out. And so now it will go through and kind of start to predict and create the information. So it's processing through. the details that come out and give me some more data. Now we'll let this kind of to run through. The key aspect that I want to kind of highlight here, which is why I show this as a demonstration, is that we often want to use generative AI to provide feedback on configurations or do configurations for us, but that it's really apt to get hallucinations on different types of areas. But if you can provide good documentation like a configuration guide, a CVD from Cisco, some sort of material as part of a RAG injection, well, now you can have a little higher degree of confidence you're going to get a good answer out of it. And LM Studio gives us that ability to kind of work with our network configuration documentation. And so we get kind of a nice piece. We can see our templates clean, follow Cisco's best practices, and then a couple of different suggestions that are there. So now I've got that kind of loaded up and I can take an advantage of that. So thoughts, questions?
No, I just want to comment that I was doing a good job inferring what you were going to do next, so I called that one out.
It's almost like we've done this before. We've presented before.
Sure. This is actually really valuable. I'm assuming the next step here is to introduce tools into this.
Yeah, so we can look at that as kind of the next piece to go in, because I know we always run late on this. So maybe we'll keep the network diagram analysis for another one, and we'll talk a bit about the capabilities that LM Studio has for tool use.
If you want to dive into that, Hank, by all means, if you see value in this.
Well, I think they're both interesting. You guys tell me which one you want to see. We'll do one, and then that'll give you guys a reason to bring me back if you want.
Yeah, let's do just continue on with this one. Do the network diagram.
The next thing I want to look at is the ability to use AI to analyze the network diagrams that are there. And so this is something that you may have used in the cloud before. And I know that as network engineers, we're often given network diagrams that we have to do something with or pull data off of them. And so we'll let me start a new chat here. So I'm going to go down and say, let me try to pick an image file. And so I'm going to jump back and say, okay, where is it? Here we go. And so hopefully this will come through in the recording as we see. But if you'll notice, I've got this network diagram, QuirkTech network diagram, but it's grayed out. I can't select it. And the reason I can't select it is because the model I'm using doesn't have the ability to analyze imagery, right? It's not a vision capable model. And this is why having the ability to kind of play and experiment with different models is important. So I'm going to eject the GPT OSS model, and I'm going to pick which one am I going to use? We'll use the Mistral small model. And this little eyeball thing here tells me that it can process image inputs. It's kind of the indication that it's capable of vision. And so I'll select that one. It'll load it up. And what we see is I now have this new thing where I can attach an image because this model is capable of taking a look at a diagram. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Oh, all right, there it goes. And I will pick that QuirkTech network diagram PNG file, and we'll open this up. And it's just, you can kind of see it in the tiny piece that's here. It's a standard network diagram. And I'm going to say, can you describe this network diagram? And so it'll take a look at it and it'll process it. Now, as it's going through this, I'm going to kind of tee us up for where we go from here. Similar to what we saw with the RAG example, where there was a limit to how much data that the local model could pull in, I have a similar complexity with image references here. And so what I typically see when I do this demonstration is it starts out pretty good, and it did here. It says it's a diagram titled QuirkTech Corporate Network. It represents the structure and connections. And then okay, here we go. At the center, there's a core network labeled QTP and DNS. This likely represents the primary domain. There's network segments. The pink is called executive office. Let me actually go find that diagram, and we'll compare what we're actually seeing from this. So here's the diagram. And if we look, we can see Circuit Cove Data Center is the pink box. So what to point out here is that even though with the local, I can load things up, we still have to kind of check our work with anything we do with AI. Now, this doesn't mean that it's not useful to use LM Studio. It just means that we have to kind of understand what's possible. So what I want to do instead is I'm going to do a new chat. I'm going to say, now I'm going to grab, where is it? The widget woods. So this is a smaller, really what this is it's just this portion of the diagram at the bottom. And so now I'm going to say, can you describe and list the networks from this diagram? because it's a smaller diagram, there's less data for this model to process. It's a fairly small, I mean, it's even called Mistral small model, but this diagram, it can handle it really, really well. It has accuracy in grabbing the IP ranges. We'll see here as it processes through the VLAN information, it successfully can pull the VLAN names, the subnets, the details. And so again, local LLM use with LM Studio, great use case, but just remember to kind of don't treat it like it's one of the big cloud models. If you used
Yeah.
effectively, it's a really powerful tool for all of us to go after. So it's just something to keep in mind as we do our experimentation. And I know that's probably where we're going to have to end today's conversation and kind of discussion, but hopefully this gives you guys, as well as the snackers out there, more ideas on how you can kind of take advantage of this aspect of AI.
Hank actually teased at the beginning there that we should probably have him back because we haven't actually looked at adding in tools. And Kareem and I have been talking about MCP servers for a while, so I feel like you're going to play that out potentially here as well. So Hank, if you don't mind coming back and showing us a little bit more of your experience with LM Studio and what can be done with it, we'd love to have you back. But unfortunately for today, we are out of time. And so snackers, go check out LM Studio, play with some of the tooling and models that Hank showed us today. Become a little bit more comfortable with it. It is very interesting and very fun to play with. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Hank. Thank you, snackers.